What up, all my fight fans? So, I want to know something, guys. I want to know what your opinion is regarding Jon Jones' statements at his post-fight interview regarding Tom Aspinall and Alex Pereira. Let's get to it, shall we? We got Jon Jones talking about how he wants FU money to go toe-to-toe with Tom Aspinall. That he is so determined, that he truly wants, that he actually feels he deserves to take on Alex Pereira. That he has the choice to say who he wants to defend his belt against, that who he wants to fight. What do we say to that, guys? I know I did a video prior to this, prior to the fight took place. I said, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but this is my opinion. I said, if you are the champion of the world, if you want to be pound for pound number one, if you want to be ranked number one, if you want to be one of the best fighters in the world, you are number one, you got to face number two. And Tom Aspinall is number two. But Jon Jones says he wants to fight Tom Aspinall. He wants FU money. We actually heard that before. He said he wanted FU money to face Francis Ngannou, and what ended up happening? That fight did not transpire. Of course, Dana White says he tried to make that fight. He told Francis he wanted to make that fight. But, of course, what ended up happening? The fight did not come into fruition. Maybe it would have if Jon Jones did not say or try to play hardball with negotiations and get FU money to face Francis Ngannou. It sounds like, I know he's basically putting out there saying like, oh, well, call me a duck. Like he doesn't care. No, he doesn't. I'm sure he doesn't. But at the same time, it will bother him because he is really looking to have that, I want to say, acceptance of his fans and everybody else out there to call him the GOAT and to say he is the best in the world. And a lot of people already do. But there's always these little asterisks and there's always these little maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And things like this and what he is doing is just showing us that he's maybe not quite yet that pound for pound best, because he's continuing to do what he can to protect his legacy and protect his record, you know, by fighting people that he knows he could beat. That Stipe fight, I did a previous video on it. I mean, me personally, I feel very strongly that fight wasn't the very best Stipe. I believe Stipe could have fought, I believe Jon could have fought somebody else that could have made it a little bit more difficult for him, but he didn't want to. He wanted to go for a legacy fight that in a way he feels and what he feels. Like he feels Alex Pereira is more of a legacy fight than Tom Aspinall. I'm sorry, it is not true, because Alex Pereira has never even fought at heavyweight. Maybe he's fought other guys at kickboxing at heavyweight, or maybe he's went sparring with people at heavyweight, but he's never been in the octagon, never been in the UFC and fought somebody at heavyweight. So that would be something completely just domination for Jon Jones. You know, it's just it is no competition, and that's something that we want to see us as fight fans. We want to see competition. We do not want to see a one-sided victory for Jon Jones, because what's the purpose of paying $80, $85 to seeing that? Why? I know it's good for Jon Jones, and Jon Jones is going to do what's good for Jon Jones. And a lot of people out there feel like that's what's best for him. And no, I'm sorry. You want to do what's good for you, you're going to get paid, but at the end of the day, you're still a competitor. You're still got to go against the best, regardless of how many times you did it. The day you retire, the day you want to go out there and fight exhibitions, then go ahead and do that. You don't need to prove anything to anybody or fight the best for anybody. We're not saying you got to prove anything, but we are saying you got to fight the best. And Alex Pereira is the best in his division. Maybe if Jon Jones said, you know what, I want to cut down to light heavyweight and see if I could beat Alex Pereira. Okay, that's something. That's something interesting there. All right, maybe I'll give him that. But the fact that you want this guy to go up to heavyweight and fight you, I'm sorry, no. And you want him to do it in 6 months. How long did it take you to fight heavyweight? What, 3 years? Yeah, no. I'm sorry. That would not fly with me. That would bother me so much. So much. And also the fact that you want to consider yourself great, but yet you fought a guy who was dominated. Well, not dominated, but got beaten by a non-wrestler, Francis Ngannou. He beat Ciryl Gane. Then you go in there and face off with Ciryl Gane and you wipe the floor with him. Great fight, great victory, but really didn't make much of a statement, because we already seen this guy get beat very brutally. Well, not brutally, but got beat pretty good, pretty handily, I should say, by Francis Ngannou, a non-wrestler, and he got wrestled. Crazy, right? Then he beats Stipe Miocic, dominates him, but at the end of the day, Stipe was 42 years old, been out of the cage for well over 4 years, or hasn't had a victory in over 4 years. His last time in the cage, he was knocked out. So what are we doing? You know, like that's been your run at heavyweight, and now you want to go up there against a non-heavyweight. It's really not looking good for his legacy at heavyweight right now. Really isn't. He actually needs Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall doesn't need him because he has years. He has youth on his side. He has years on his side to where he can actually become the greatest of all time still. So can Alex Pereira eventually. John Jones, in order to really truly stand out as one of the all-time best without people making any kind of excuses, because that's what you give us. You give us valid excuses. You know, I just mentioned the two of them, with Stipe and with Ciryl Gane. And what's even funnier is that he's telling everybody that Tom Aspinall doesn't deserve it, but then you at light heavyweight gave all these other young fighters a chance to go against you, like Anthony Smith, like Dominic Reyes, like Thiago Santos, and those guys barely did anything in the division themselves. They did what they're supposed to do to get the number one contender, but if you compare the both of them to you compare Tom Aspinall to the light heavyweights that he gave a chance to, it just doesn't make any sense. Why'd you give these guys a chance, but you didn't give these guys? You're not going to give Tom Aspinall a chance. And just come out and say it. You know what? Yeah, he poses more of a bigger threat. He makes things a little bit more difficult for me. It's way more of a challenge that I'm comfortable with. And then at that point, that's when you do got to relinquish that belt. That's when you do got to give it up. Because if you're not willing to take on chances, you want super fights, which is weird that he said he wants super fights, because I'm sorry, John, but you're a couple years too late with super fights. If he would have came around, if he would have not, after that Gustafsson win, which was back, I want to say in 2017, 2018, maybe around that time frame, he could have went up to heavyweight and he could have had so many super fights. So many. Hell, if you would have even came up to heavyweight a lot sooner than that, because there was rumor that he wanted to come up to heavyweight when Cain Velasquez was around. So you got to ask yourself, what are we doing here? What's going on? Why you want super fights? I get it. You want legacy, but I'm sorry, the super fights, those times are done. You could have had Stipe when he was in his prime. You could have had DC when he was in his prime, even though you guys fought each other at light heavyweight. DC looked way different and way better at heavyweight. He could have fought Francis Ngannou and quite possibly got Brock Lesnar to come back as well. There were just so many super fights he could have had, but he decided to take 3 years away from the UFC